The year is 1919. The Great War, a conflict of unprecedented devastation, has finally ended. Millions lie dead, victims of a war that ravaged Europe and beyond. From the ashes of this global conflict emerges a glimmer of hope, the Paris Peace Conference. Here, world leaders gather to forge a new path to ensure such widespread death and destruction never happen again. At the heart of this ambition lies the Treaty of Versailles, a document designed to reshape the world. Signed on the 28th of June 1919, exactly 5 years after the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, this treaty aimed to dismantle the structures that led to war and establish a lasting peace. The treaty was more than just a peace agreement, it was an attempt to rewrite the rules of international relations. The victorious Allied powers, led by France, Britain and the United States, sought to punish Germany, the main aggressor in their eyes, and prevent future German aggression. The treaty also aimed to redraw the map of Europe, creating new nations and altering borders. This ambitious undertaking, however, was fraught with challenges, as the victors grappled with competing national interests and the complexities of rebuilding a shattered world. The Treaty of Versailles was a product of its time, shaped by the horrors of war and the desire for a lasting peace. It reflected the victors' determination to prevent future conflicts, but also their desire for retribution. This mix of idealism and pragmatism would have far-reaching consequences, shaping the political, economic and social landscape of the 20th century. The Treaty of Versailles was a complex document containing hundreds of clauses that addressed various aspects of the post-war world. At its core, however, were a series of punitive measures aimed at limiting Germany's power and capacity for war. These terms, designed to cripple Germany's military and economy, sowed the seeds of resentment that would have lasting repercussions. One of the most significant aspects of the treaty was the War Guilt Clause. This clause, Article 231, forced Germany to accept sole responsibility for causing the war. This admission of guilt came with a hefty price tag. Germany was ordered to pay reparations to the Allied powers for the damage caused by the conflict. The initial sum demanded was an astronomical £6.6 billion, a staggering figure that crippled the German economy. The treaty also imposed severe restrictions on Germany's military capabilities. The once mighty German army was limited to a mere 100,000 men. Conscription was abolished, effectively dismantling the country's ability to quickly mobilize a large fighting force. Germany's navy was similarly restricted, with limitations placed on the size and type of warships it could possess. The treaty went even further, forbidding Germany from possessing an air force, tanks, or submarines, key elements of modern warfare. These military restrictions were designed to ensure that Germany could never again pose a threat to its neighbors. The Allies believed that by crippling Germany's military might, they could prevent future aggression and safeguard European peace. However, the severity of these measures, coupled with the humiliation of the War Guilt Clause, created a deep sense of resentment among the German population. This resentment, festering in the years after the war, would contribute to the rise of nationalism and ultimately pave the way for another global conflict. The signing of the Treaty of Versailles sent shockwaves through German society. The once proud nation, now burdened with crippling reparations and stripped of its military might, grappled with the humiliation of defeat and the harsh realities of the treaty's terms. The immediate consequences were dire, plunging Germany into economic and political turmoil. The massive reparations payments placed an immense strain on the German economy. The loss of valuable industrial territories ceded to France and other nations further hampered Germany's ability to recover. The German mark plummeted in value, leading to hyperinflation that crippled the economy and plunged millions into poverty. The streets of German cities became scenes of desperation as people struggled to afford basic necessities. The political landscape was equally turbulent. The newly established Weimar Republic, already fragile in its infancy, faced immense challenges in governing a nation reeling from defeat and burdened by the treaty's demands. The treaty's terms fueled nationalist sentiment, providing fertile ground for extremist groups who exploited the widespread anger and resentment towards the Allies. The treaty's impact extended beyond economics and politics, leaving a deep scar on the German psyche. The humiliation of defeat, compounded by the perceived injustice of the treaty's terms, fostered a sense of resentment and a desire for revenge. This simmering anger, exploited by opportunistic leaders, would have dangerous consequences in the years to come. The Treaty of Versailles, while intended to establish a lasting peace, had a profound and often destabilizing impact on global politics. The treaty's redrawing of borders and creation of new nations, while aiming to address nationalist aspirations, also created new tensions and rivalries. The seeds of future conflicts were sown as the treaty failed to adequately address the underlying causes of the war. The treaty's impact was particularly pronounced in Europe. The Austro-Hungarian and Ottoman empires, once major powers, were dismantled, and new nations emerged from their ruins. However, the process of drawing new boundaries was often arbitrary, failing to consider historical ties and ethnic complexities. This led to the creation of multi-ethnic states with significant minority populations, creating new sources of tension and instability. The treaty's impact extended beyond Europe, influencing the rise of nationalist movements in Asia and Africa. The treaty's failure to address the issue of colonial possessions, particularly those of the defeated powers, fueled anti-colonial sentiment. The perceived hypocrisy of the victorious powers, advocating for self-determination in Europe while maintaining their colonial empires, did not go unnoticed. The Treaty of Versailles, while aiming to create a new world order based on peace and cooperation, ultimately contributed to a more unstable and fragmented international system. The treaty's punitive measures against Germany, coupled with its failure to adequately address the grievances of other nations, created a legacy of resentment and instability that would cast a long shadow over the 20th century.